again, my name is Ani Baker, and I'm a teacher turned documentary filmmaker, and this is episode 11 of Around the World in 2020, and this week we get to hear firsthand what it's been like in Vietnam. Now, Vietnam has been so proactive about this virus that they shut everything down in January. Before there were even any confirmed cases in the country, they were acting based on the first 2 deaths in Wuhan. They enacted travel restrictions, border closures, they increased health checks, they closed schools, and they did vast, super labor-intensive contact tracing. Now, Vietnam has dealt with a lot of outbreaks in the past. They were hit with SARS in 2003, they had the avian flu in 2010, and large outbreaks of measles and dengue have hit them as well, so they know how serious viruses are, and they cracked down immediately, and it has worked. At the time of this interview in July, they still had 0 deaths, and since then it's only increased incrementally. Today, we get to talk to a high school teacher named Devon Whitham about all of it, living in a communist country during a pandemic, about how the residents actually felt during the very early shutdowns, and about what it's been like to have been working in one of the fields that was shut down while people in other higher grossing fields were able to purchase passes from the government to continue going to work. And her boyfriend happened to be in one of those fields. I will let her tell you the rest. Here is Around the World in 2020, Hanoi, Vietnam.
Masks in this part of the world are ubiquitous. People use them. I mean, the air quality here is really poor, so people are really used to wearing masks. They also are just used to wearing them if they're feeling ill, to protect others. It's just part of the culture here. So masks were encouraged or maybe required. I don't really remember, but everyone was wearing them anyway. So yeah, you started to see in like stores and in there would be like a security guard who would make you wash your, do the hand sanitizer before you went in anywhere and just check that you had a mask on, or they'd give them out at the door if you didn't. Westerners, we were a lot slower to sort of get on board. My boyfriend's Japanese and he's very strict about it, so I would always wear a mask, but a lot of my friends wouldn't be wearing masks. Just felt like such a massive overreaction.
So interesting to hear that perspective, because over here we're complaining because it's being grossly mishandled, but I've gone in my head to the place of okay, let's say our government was for some reason really safe and proactive about this. I was like, people also wouldn't like that. So it's interesting to hear that perspective.
The difference, right, in Vietnam is it's just such a different relationship with the government, right? It's a communist country, but it seems, at least here in the north, people just trust the government. There aren't competing parties, there aren't competing ideas. People don't debate politics. When there was someone found to have coronavirus, they did incredible contact tracing to the 5th degree. So the person ate at this noodle shop at this time. That information would go out over the media. Anyone who was there would then get interviewed. Who did they see that day? And just depending on what level of contact you were, what degree, you either were quarantined in a government quarantine site or you could do so at home. If someone was found to have coronavirus who lived on a certain street, they sprayed down the entire street with massive, who knows what, chemicals. And everyone who lived on that street was quarantined in their homes for 2 weeks, and they would deliver food to their homes.
I am blown away. I
mean, it was a war. And one thing that Vietnam has a lot of experience with is war.
One of the headlines of the articles that I was reading says 2 new cases. And I was just I can't believe that this is
that's the headline. If you test positive in Vietnam, you are quarantined with the government. The way that it was framed was it was a war. It was a war on COVID.
Okay.
And you see propaganda posters everywhere. There was a song about washing your hands and wearing a mask and keeping social distance, and it would just play continuously. Everyone was on board, for better or for worse. When you have a somewhat authoritarian regime telling people what to do, when they're saying to do the right thing, it works. A lot of people have been second guessing their initial thoughts on the government here because there was a ton of distrust. Once it started spreading all over the world, and we still had 0 deaths, and we still had such a low number, and even today we have under 500 cases.
I saw that. The zero death thing blew my mind because Vietnam, it's like a 95 million population. It's huge.
It's nearly a third of the US population.
Healthcare, what's healthcare like?
It's not great. It's still a developing country. There isn't, initially I just assumed communist country, there must be socialized medicine. We all have private health insurance, just like in America. It doesn't cover a lot of things that are covered in it. Like it doesn't cover any preventative health care or any checkups even. After seeing what happened in Wuhan, even a mild outbreak in Vietnam would have totally overwhelmed the healthcare system. And they just were gung-ho about doing whatever it took to not face that.
If you can speak about what you think or what you picked up on what the Vietnamese culture's view of us is, especially during this time. You probably keep up with American politics just because this is where you're from. Do you find that Vietnamese people or your boyfriend or people there are also have their eyes on America and what we're doing?
Oh, big time. People are just absolutely appalled. It's so embarrassing.
I know.
It's so embarrassing and it's so sad.
Probably got to be one of the hardest parts for you. I feel embarrassed walking around in my own country to be here. And you probably feel like, yeah, you're representative of this shit show that's going on in a place where people are handling it better. I can imagine that would weigh on me.
But yes, I think almost universally they can't understand the debate internally in America and just like the lack of trust, I think, of authority. It's so different for them.
The rate at which we're taking in like terror right now, I feel like it's gonna really fuck with us long term. Like we're gonna get addicted to like chaos, and
everything the government does here is sort of, it has to be popular. They have to maintain sort of the support of the people. You could buy passes from the government. So for example, some of the administrators at my school would still go into work. They decided it was worthwhile for whatever reason to pay the government to give them passes. That was very frustrating, from a sort of a feminist perspective and like a anti-capitalist perspective. It's like, we're only taking this as seriously as you are.
I imagine that getting your schedule at the end of every week is a very emotionally taxing experience to only have a week's worth of info at a time. Tell me a little bit about what that was like for you. And also, what did you do with your time?
Not enough. I had big plans and I didn't do well with that sort of. I got very frustrated and definitely felt resentful because my boyfriend was still going to work, and I'm not, it was a fairly new relationship at that point, and I felt like a housewife. I'm studying Japanese, so I did study Japanese a lot and still am. We were teaching, we were online teaching. In my position, it wasn't like a full-time workload. For most teachers, it was a lot more than that. No, I didn't do well at all. But then again, when school started, I was wishing that we were back, working from home.
I wonder if your experience with being at home would have been different if they were able to give you just a bigger block of time that you could wrap your head around. Because what I noticed is for the first few months here, we were getting info every couple weeks too, or like, oh, I think it might be that we're in lockdown for the next 2, maybe 3 weeks. And it was all pretty amorphous. And it's like, I don't know all right, so what do I do with 3 weeks off? Kind of, but it doesn't really feel like a vacation, And then I think when my brain started to adjust was when I just fully accept. I extended it in my head. I was like, this is going to be till the end of the year, and I'm embracing that now. And then I was able to start moving around within it. But you probably didn't get that luxury because you knew you were going to go back. You just weren't sure when. And everyone I've talked to, including myself, has had their version of that experience.
I was so lucky because again, it was only a 3-week actual lockdown, and for a lot of my time where I wasn't working, I could still go to the gym, go to yoga, but that was weird too, because it's like, what are we doing? Like, if I can go kickboxing, like right in your face, breathing, but I can't teach, your job is a big part of your identity, especially in this new relationship where he was still able to work. And I felt like, okay, I had to have dinner ready when he came home. I was like, fuck this. I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, it's been so wonderful talking to you. Just before you go, tell me one thing that you love about teaching.
I just love the kids, and I love when they're excited about things that I'm excited about,
Yeah. I miss kids. Yeah. Well, it's beautiful. I'll let you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.